Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dirty Martini. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having an amazing day. Before I proceed with this episode and today's topic, I want to acknowledge what is going on in LA right now. Because of the wildfires, which I hope by the time I upload this will be taken under control and hopefully arsonists who have two brain cells and are actually contributing to the problem will be stopped. But because of those fires, which started a couple of days ago, thousands of families have been affected and their homes have been burned down to ashes. A lot of wildlife has burned alive. Thousands of architectural structures have been destroyed. People are displaced. Firefighters are fighting day and night, and their efforts do not go unnoticed, but those people, they're getting exhausted. It's just an immense tragedy through and through. And now is the time to stand strong and stay together to support each other in such difficult circumstances. And as much as I urge you to keep those people and animals in your thoughts and prayers, we as a global community, or at least as a little Dirty Martini community, should also take some actionable steps to help the LA folk. So on my Instagram at Dirty Martini Pod, you can see some resources where you can make donations. And if you can afford to make a donation, please consider doing so. I personally chose to donate to the California Fire Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization. It supports, in particular, firefighters and their families and the communities they are protecting. And there are many more fundraising organizations, so I urge you to make your own research. And again, if you can and want to make a donation, select an organization that you believe in. If you cannot afford to make a donation, please consider sharing donation links on your social media or sending them directly to people you know can afford to donate. So my heart goes out to everyone who's affected by this disaster, and I pray that things end as quickly as possible. And I read this quote the other day, which said something along the lines of climate change will manifest as a series of disasters viewed through phones with footage that gets closer and closer to where you live until you're the one filming it. And if not anything else, I hope we as people start taking climate change significantly more seriously and recognize our contribution to it and how we can prevent it from further developing. Because climate change is real and it is not a joke. So please get educated as much as you can. Be careful. There is a lot of misinformation and disinformation around the wildfires right now and surrounding climate change right now. So get educated from trusted sources, and don't be ashamed to ask questions or not know things. It is, I believe, rather more shameful if you purposefully decide to live in ignorance rather than recognize your ignorance and strive to eradicate it. Ignorance is not bliss. That's all I'll say. Please get educated, donate if you can, and just stay informed. With that being said, let's proceed with today's topic. And as you have seen by today's title, today I want to focus on New Year's resolutions. With the annually overwhelming influx of content about how to make 2025 your year and how to be your best version yet and how to change your life radically within a day, I thought I might as well jump on the train and give my 2 cents that nobody asked for, because this podcast is just that, my 2 cents that nobody asked for. So, New Year's resolutions. Raise your hand if you made a New Year's resolution for 2025 and you've already failed at it. Go on, don't be shy. My hand is up to the sky. I promised myself that I will be better at skincare and actually take care of my face, but since September up till now, I have probably put moisturizer no more than 7 or 8 times. And that was only when my skin got so dry, it actually started shedding. Fun, I know. And that is just because I am so depressed right now. Like, I cannot bring myself to stick to my previous routines because they're just so demanding. Like, me at my peak, oh my God, she's a different person. But me now, I cannot keep up. But that is a different topic in itself. Let's just stick to New Year's resolutions because what can I say? We're off to a great start in 2025, aren't we? Anyways, so New Year's resolutions. You know, we all do or have done them at some point. Some rather more realistically, others more delusionally, guilty as charged. And those realistic or rather unrealistic and hyper optimistic promises we make to ourselves, those goals we set, delusions with delusion, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Most of the times they're about starting to do something or on the other end of the spectrum, ceasing to do something over the course of the new year. Some rather popular ones, which I could be as bold as to assume that we have all had at one point or another, are, for example, to work out more, read more, save money, drink more water, travel more, and so on and so forth. And for many people, not all, but many for sure, this determination and motivation lasts all the way up to January 2nd around noon. Now, why is that? Well, I think that before we uncover why New Year's resolutions don't work more often than not, we should first understand why is it that we create them. So, in psychology, there's this thing called the fresh start effect. The fresh start effect basically refers to the fact that people are more likely to take action towards a goal after a temporal landmark, which represents a new beginning. What are temporal landmarks, you may ask? Well, those are moments in time which stand out. Basically, those are days that are different from other days. Days that we give a more special meaning to. Days that have a bigger importance to ourselves personally or societally. So for instance, those can be holidays like your birthday or New Year's. But they can also very much be the days of the week or the date of the month. So for example, the first of the month and Mondays in particular. And in marketing research, which is when I was first familiarized with the concept more in depth, temporal landmarks are recognizable, real, and significantly important. So for instance, on Monday, searches on Google like healthy diet or workout plans or whatever are made far more frequently than, for example, on any other day of the week. And that is because temporal landmarks are motivators of aspirational behavior. They symbolize the new. They mark the passage of time and embody the dichotomy, or at least the believed dichotomy between the old and the new you. In other words, temporal landmarks are perceived as the beginning of a new cycle. They are the gap between a current behavior and past patterns and past habits. So naturally, when we want to enact change, we look for a temporal landmark because subconsciously we believe that a temporal landmark resets the clock and our lives and who we are. Basically, This feeling of a new beginning eradicates the concept of continuation of time and the continuation of the self, and we perceive the person we are post-temporal landmark to be a better and somewhat disconnected version of the person we were pre-temporal landmark. And ultimately, what a temporal landmark gives you is the feeling that you have a new clean slate to work with, a new blank canvas to paint on. And sure, I don't mean to crush all your perceptions and beliefs and dreams. To a certain extent, that can be true. You might perceive that you have a new canvas, but you're still the same artist. Of course, people can and they do change. What I mean is that what you're using to paint with on that canvas is not an entirely new artistry kit, because you are still you. Because change can and it does happen, but it does not happen in a vacuum. It does not happen in isolation from who we are, who we were, what we lived, believed, thought, felt. I would actually argue that change happens namely because of those things, not despite of them. So ultimately, the you are on the 1st of January is a continuation of the you were on the 31st of December. And your Saturday version is a manifestation and a continuation of your Wednesday self. Because even though we might feel like the clock and the calendar have reset, our thoughts, feelings, actions, ways of being have not. You do not go back to factory settings on Monday or on the 1st of January. You just continue who you are, even if that is a different version of you from the you were. So it is not so much about you getting a new set of paint to use on that new blank canvas. It is about what you create with the old colors you have in your bag. You can mix them and create new colors and new paintings and patterns, but you still use the same toolbox. And the goal is that you find a way to implement this toolbox to enact change if you feel change is necessary or if change is something you want. But the you are or the you will be is not disconnected from the you were. Does that make sense? That is one of the main reasons New Year's resolutions fail. Because we think everything will be brand new and nice and clean, and then it is the 1st of January and none of our problems have been magically fixed, and we're still sad, still broke, still lonely, because the change comes within us over time. It does not miraculously happen overnight just because we bought a new calendar. And the thing is, people, we are beings of habit. We have our own established patterns and behaviors, whether we recognize them or not. And enacting change and breaking a habit is difficult and demanding and requires a lot of determination and work, which is something not everyone is willing to or able to invest. And sometimes we are unable or unwilling to properly account for what it will take to enact this change of habit, because change is daunting and uncomfortable, and it is easier to follow existing patterns. And I don't want you to feel ashamed about this if this is something you experience. Out of pure survival instincts, you are of course going to stick with the comfort and the known. But if you really want to enact change, you have to let that comfort zone go. And trust me, it won't be comfortable. It is in the very name of it. It won't be easy. You will doubt the process and its worth. You perhaps will also doubt yourself and your worth. But if it is genuinely something you need or desire, you will have to do it. I don't mean to sound like a posh life coach now and present you with all the obvious, nonsensical, over-repeated Pinterest motivation quotes. I just thought that this is something I should mention. For you, for me, for whoever needs it, just a little reminder that change is not comfortable. Change is not supposed to be comfortable, because if we feel comfortable, that doesn't mean that we're changing anything, because we're still set in our own ways. And if we want to change our ways, we need to break them. Another reason New Year's resolutions don't work is because of our cognitive illusions and biases. So another thing in psychology that is very relevant to the topic is this thing called planning fallacy. And it is more about meeting deadlines and stuff, but I still think it's quite relevant. And especially also the underlying reasons that cause it. Let's dissect it step by step. So, planning fallacy. Man, I'm loving this episode so much right now because it is just all about my favorite course from the pre-master so far. Because in my first block, we were studying something like consumer psychology, let's call it. And I just found every single thing so interesting and compelling. And I still think about every single concept every single day because it was just so fascinating. With just, yet again, twist the knife in my heart, which once wanted to study psychology. I don't regret not doing it, but sometimes I wonder what would have been. And don't tell me you're still young, you can always enroll in a psychology degree. I can, but I won't, because I am so done with academia and studying. It is not even funny, especially considering that I am just now starting my journey to my master's, let alone the journey of the master's. I know I'm extremely privileged and lucky that I get to study. I try not to take it for granted, but it is just that the last 4 months drove me to a burnout on a level I did not know existed. So I just want to get my master's degree as fast as possible because I do still want a degree and I want to never again have to write an academic article in my life. Oh my God, I want it. The day I submit my final essay, we're all celebrating. Drinks on me, I promise you. Hopefully I'll be able to afford it by then, although at this rate, I don't think I'll be able to afford my own drink unless it's water. But hey, one can only hope. So this is a warning or a threat for future me who will eventually, or at least I hope will eventually graduate from her master's in 2 years. Oh my God, 2 years is such a long way from today, but also I will blink and it will be 2 years from now. So to me, 2 years from now, don't you dare even think about doing a PhD. I don't care what emotional and existential crisis you will be going through. A PhD is not going to fix it. Leave your narcissism to the side for a little bit, please. You don't need to be called a doctor. Don't turn into Ross from Friends, okay? Take a very much deserved break. We were on a break, although I don't agree with the we were on a break, but New Year's resolutions. Anyways, that was just a side note. So back to the planning fallacy. So the planning fallacy refers to the idea that we people tend to hold a very idealistic, hyper optimistic, confident, and honestly rather delusional belief that everything will proceed as planned, even while knowing that the vast majority of similar projects, ideas, plans in the past have failed to happen by a set deadline or have failed to meet our expectations. Now, the planning fallacy isn't as pronounced when we don't have a deadline, But the whole thing behind a New Year's resolution is that you have a very big, strict deadline that you cannot ask for an extension from. Propositions, again, not, it is 2 a.m. Who cares? English is not my first language. So basically, you have a very big deadline, the 31st of December. You have 365 days, 366 on a leap year. Although last year was a leap year. Oh my God, last year was a leap year. Yay. So you have 365 days to meet your goal. And the problem is that saying you have a year sounds like such a long period of time, and sure, it can be. And you just start procrastinating at the very best, and most times things just don't work out. Now, why does the planning fallacy happen? Well, the main reason is the optimism bias. It is, in a nutshell, the idea that you're always thinking best case scenario. Now, I'm not saying that this is a terrible thing. However, this can be dangerous because the tendency to expect better than average outcomes from your actions and the events that may occur in your life can create a lot of pressure and misconceptions about being perfect, and a lot of disappointment when reality hits and you realize you're not perfect and nothing will ever be perfect, because the whole concept of humanity and realness and authenticity is deprived of the ability to be ideal for the very sake of authenticity. So expecting best case scenario is not realistic and can be detrimental, because sometimes a positive thing is just as likely to happen as a negative thing. I don't mean to bring the mood down and deprive you of any hopes and dreams. It is just that you have to learn to be adaptable, is what I'm trying to get at. And you have to be adaptable for when sometimes things inevitably don't go according to plan. But as for optimism and New Year's resolutions, it is exactly this: expecting the best always, not recognizing that failure is an integral part of success. And it just ultimately creates negative feelings because you don't see failure as a learning opportunity, but as a failure, as disappointment, as a waste of time and energy. So the way to prevent optimism bias from infiltrating your life and biasing your beliefs and patterns is to look at things from an outside perspective. Objectivity is impossible, but try to look at yourself and your actions from the lens of someone else. And an easy way to do this is to talk to someone else. Or if you don't want to talk to someone else, imagine it was your friend who was doing the things you were doing. What would you think then? This can give you a more realistic and grounded perception of your plans and actions, and this can be then useful to create a better structure to actualize your goals. And lastly, or at least the last one I could think of, our New Year's resolutions fail because we establish goals but not plans. We set our New Year's resolutions as dreams that we hope come true, but more often than not, we fail to make actionable steps to actually make the goals happen. Because, for example, you cannot set a resolution, travel more, and then never leave your room and never look up any destination or a ticket or whatever, to not engage with anything travel-wise. So we just tend to struggle to actualize things, because coming up with ideas can be much more easy than coming up with a step-by-step plan and actually following it through. That can be because of optimism bias, planning fallacy, lack of motivation, lack of deeper understanding of earning an achievement, and so many more reasons that I just cannot even think of, because setting a goal and achieving it is not always as straightforward as we initially imagine it to be. because there are so many dynamics to be considered and so much effort to be put that sometimes we're just unable to comprehend it all and organize it in a way that makes sense. But not all hope is lost. We can implement the very reasons we fail into our strategy to succeed with our New Year's resolutions. And not only our New Year's resolutions, just our goals, period. So now, what I will try to do, again, without sounding like a life coach, although maybe I am losing any form and drop of credibility I have in front of you, because I do sound like a cheesy Pinterest board from 2015. So what I'm trying to do now, or what I will try to do now, is just give you some actionable tips on how to achieve your New Year's resolutions. Because a thing I really hate is when people try to give you advice, but they say absolutely nothing. They just say words with no meaning and don't give any actionable tips. Like, they don't tell you what to do. When I was little, I hated people telling me what to do. As I grow older, I just beg my parents to tell me what to do, and they're smart enough to not tell me what to do. But I just sometimes wish there was a step-by-step plan that I could easily follow and just get things done without having to bend over backwards and cry my homeostasis out of my eyes to only then break apart. So, without further ado, and without any more abundance of positivity that is just pouring out of me, as you can tell. So, first and foremost, it is important that if you want to achieve your goals, you create plans and then act on them. Seeing things written or planned out step by step can help with creating a clearer vision of how to proceed to actually fulfill that goal. Because just dreaming about things and not doing anything to achieve them is not going to get you anywhere. I'm sorry. Also, apart from eradicating the vagueness of a particular ultimate goal, this can also reduce it down to smaller actionable bites that you can actually take. So for instance, instead of just saying, I don't know, let's come up with something not mundane, but like something obvious. Okay, so let's say you want to be a better cook and just sit and pray that somehow you are the reincarnation of Gordon Ramsay, who is still alive. So I don't know why I use the word reincarnation, but like, you just hope that Gordon Ramsay or Jamie Oliver just, haunt you and like, what is the verb for when like a ghost takes over a person's body? That thing, I don't remember. It's not haunt, but it's like, what is it? Let me look it up. Okay, I'll translate it from Bulgarian because I honestly cannot remember the English word. Obładavam. Possess. So you cannot just sit and wait that Gordon Ramsay possesses you. You have to work on your skills. So, for instance, you learn a new chopping technique. You learn how to prepare the ingredients better. You learn what to make out of measurements and what flavors go together well and complement each other. Then you turn it up a notch. You select 10 to 20 easy recipes to try out and perfect over time. Then the recipes in themselves, they are instructions. They are organized plans. Then you can more confidently improvise and experiment because you already have some sort of a structure in your head. You have experience, you have a plan. Just this can give you the confidence to do things. And all those things, all those small steps you took from learning how to hold a knife properly to how to chop an onion perfectly without crying, and then how to select the perfect rice to water ratio, those things, the accumulation of them all, the conjoined analysis of it all, guys, I'm preparing for a digital marketing analytics exam, and I was studying about the conjoint analysis earlier today. Anyway, so all of those things, the summation of them all will ultimately build up your knowledge, your skills, your abilities, and stepping on this foundation, you can achieve the goal. So plans are important because, as obvious as it sounds, we sometimes tend to overlook or to underestimate the importance of making small but valuable progress. Just following the steps will make the path clear and actionable. And you will reach the ultimate goal eventually, because in the vagueness and lack of clarity in the ultimate, we can get lost and overwhelmed. Of course, please, I'm begging you, make sure to leave room for spontaneity, is I think how you pronounce it, to make life just more fun and colorful, because not everything can go according to plan, as the planning fallacy suggests. You just have to adapt. Use the plans as a guideline, not as a rule book that will constrain your creativity and curiosity. And remember that it is okay to lose the path for a little while. That is okay. That is sometimes to be expected. That does not mean you failed. And speaking of failure, my second advice is allow yourself to fail over and over and over and over again, however many times you need, and to learn from that failure. You are just a human being, and just because that's how things life and work, sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes things will take more time and effort than anticipated, and they will not work out until they do. The important thing is to flip the narrative of failure and not let it label you, but teach you. In my life, I have learned more from failing than from succeeding. And just because sometimes I don't stick to my 7-step skincare routine, that doesn't mean that ultimately I failed as a person or that my 2025 is a waste. No, definitely not. And I refuse to let me skipping under eye cream every now and then to define my year as a waste and define me as a failure, because it most definitely is not, and I most definitely am not, at least in this aspect. In other aspects, I may be a failure, but when it comes to skincare, I'll survive. Hopefully. I haven't been using sunscreen, but I also live in a country that is constant overcast, so anyways, I was about to bring up not so pleasant of a topic, so let's just continue with failure. So the thing is, things are circumstantial, and what I'm trying to do and what I would advise you to do is just try to recognize that circumstances change and things happen, and you can only control the things you can control. And just because something is not going the way I wanted it to go or the way I promised myself to do it, that does not mean that I am a failure. Failure and failing should not scare you. You should be scared of letting failure define you and sinking yourself in a river of self-pity if things don't always work out. Let yourself learn to be adaptable. Let yourself fail in your attempts, and you will see, and I promise you that you will see that when you do eventually achieve the thing you set out to achieve, you will have an appreciation for it and for yourself. You will have an entirely new addition to your emotional, physical, and spiritual capabilities that would have otherwise been unattainable. So I promise you, just because you skipped flossing one time, the world will steep. the world will still keep spinning and your life will proceed as normal. Although you should floss, as annoying as it can be. But I will tell you about my experience with flossing in a minute. Another more abstract and maybe not as actionable easily, like immediately thing you can do is try and recognize the continuation of time. Because, like I mentioned earlier, we tend to perceive the version of ourselves post a temporal landmark as an entirely new version of ourselves. So, the new year, new me mentality. That is a load of crap, if I say so myself. So I feel like if you try to focus on perceiving yourself not as an entirely distant entity from the you were yesterday, a whole lot of pressure you are experiencing will be lifted off. Because this idea of newness comes with the desire to be perfect, to be better, to think, act, and be our best. And sometimes this creates a lot of tension in the process of starting to actually do something. And it can prevent you from starting to do something. And that can create a lot of stress. It can create an immense amount of stress. And this stress can lead to the lack of authenticity and can lead to a lot of fear. And depriving yourself from recognizing your lived truth is a self-sabotaging technique that is going to drive you to an identity crisis at best. And trust me, I have tried and tested this time and time again. So recognize your past, don't run away from it. And I'm not saying live in the past, I'm just inviting you to recognize that it is a part of you and your life experiences, and you can use it as a stepping stone in your transformation rather than trying to invalidate its existence. Another way, and this by far I think is the easiest to apply and the most efficient in the short-term implementation and in the long-term habit establishment, is making things easily attainable and obvious in your everyday life. If you really want to enact any change, you need to make it enactable and easy to implement. If you had to go out of your way every day to do that one thing, you more often than not would not do it, unless you were my parents when they were going to school when they were little, and I had no clue that they had to go through 7 different mountains and swim through 7 different seas and walk through 7 different deserts to reach the bus stop that will take them to school. But if it was right there in front of you, you are more likely to pay attention to it, whatever it is that you want to achieve. So for instance, if you want to save money, put all the change you get in a day in a jar. Or if you live in a cashless society, check if your bank app has a saving option which rounds up every bill to the next euro or whatever currency you use. And those cents it rounds up, puts them in a savings account. So this is something my bank app can do. If saving money is your goal, maybe try this one, because it's like little small actionable steps that are easily attainable, and their pain is not felt in the short or the long term, so they're actionable. Do things in a way that doesn't make you emotionally, physically, or mentally exhausted, because if the things you do exhaust you, you're not likely to continue doing them. Mechanize them or implement any other technique to make them easy and attainable so that you actually build habits out of them and don't perform them as a one-time thing that you end up hating. This is the one advice I have implemented the most this year. This year meaning that it started literally last week, but hey, it is a new year. So, for example, 3 of my goals this year are to take my vitamins daily or as often as I can, floss at least once a day, and spend less time on social media. Now, let me tell you how I have approached those 3 goals, and maybe by explaining it to you, I can give you some ideas and clarity on how you could potentially approach your goals, or maybe this can serve as an example of what not to do, whatever applies to you. So, first, the vitamins. I know taking a single pill every day is not demanding at all. But in my case, well, it is 2 pills in my case because one is multivitamins and the other is magnesium because I am an old lady already, and when the seasons change, my injuries from gymnastics act up. So, anyways, I know it is such an easy and attainable goal, but I just used to never do it. I could never get myself to take my vitamins. And the way I have started doing it now is I have left them on my nightstand, and when I have dinner, I just take them. When they're there and I see them, I guilt trip myself into taking them. And so far, my success rate has been pretty good. Not 100%, that's for sure. But in the past week, I have taken my vitamins more regularly than I did for the entirety of 2024, simply because I made them visible. They are something I cannot avoid even if I wanted to. The flossing thing. So I know it is so great to floss, and I kept on buying dental floss. This is so gross, and I promise you, everything else, oral hygiene thingy, I do. Like, I brush my teeth with an electric toothbrush. I use a tongue scraper. If you don't use a tongue scraper, I don't want to talk to you. Your breath stinks. I'm sorry, but like, if I go on a deserted island, this is one of the things I am bringing with myself. Even if I had to bring only one thing, a tongue scraper is what I'm bringing with myself. Some of y'all don't use tongue scrapers, and it shows. I'm sorry. I love you guys, but please, they're not that expensive. Use a tongue scraper. And then, yeah, of course, I use mouthwash. But the thing is, with flossing, I would use my dental floss like less than 5 times a year. That is nasty. I admit it. I am disgusted by myself. But it just felt so demanding, and I am a lazy person in a lot of aspects of my life, and an entire differently spectrum of aspects. What did I just say? Oh my God. Well, in another field of my life, I am a workaholic, but in those things, I tend to be lazy because I already brush, I tongue scrape, and I use mouthwash. So I was like flossing, like, I know I have to. Anyways, so what I did is I went out and I bought a cheap water flosser. And by cheap, I mean cheap. I kid you not, it was 10 euros. Shout out to Action. Action, the best store in the Netherlands. And by mechanizing the process and not having to floss manually with an actual floss, but with water, I do it often, like more often than ever before. Again, success rate is not 100%, but I floss at least 4 to 5 times a week now, which honestly, that is such an improvement. I don't know if it is because I'm still very excited for the dental floss, or because here's the thing, flossing now is so much easier and so much faster, and I don't have to think about it. Although here is another pro tip: if you do buy a water flosser, be careful, because the first time I used it, my entire mirror was covered in water splashes because I just didn't close my mouth. Like, I wanted to see how the water flosser works, and like me wanting to see how it works, like I opened my mouth to see how the water like does its thing, and it naturally went everywhere. So be careful. No need to flood your bathroom just to see that. Just watch a YouTube video and you'll see how it works. Just close your mouth. But like, make sure to drain the water so that you don't drown. Don't take any health advice from me because I'm not a professionalist, and everything you do that I say on here is at your own risk, and I refuse to be held accountable, and I am not liable for any injuries you might sustain, be it physical, emotional, mental, psychological, whatever. I just said what I said. So yeah, flossing. Now it is easy. I don't have to think about it. It takes less time. So I made my goal attainable through mechanization. Now, I know that water flossers are very expensive usually. And again, I cannot believe I found this cheap one. It is not branded. Like, it's also much smaller, the capacity. But I just didn't feel like investing hundreds of euros that I don't have in something that I didn't know if I was going to use. So I felt like going for the cheaper option was the way to go, and I don't regret it at all. It still does the job pretty well, and this is perhaps one of the best purchases I have ever made, and I highly recommend you look into water flossing if you also struggle with getting yourself to floss because you're lazy like me. Because come on, like, if you are out there and you manually floss every single day, at least once a day, I want to be you. You are everything I want to be and more. You have determination, you have stamina, you have motivation, and I wish I could be you, but I'm not, which is why water flossing it is for me. It does the job. And lastly, the social media one. So in 2024, I spent a disgustingly long time on social media. I deleted my TikTok in 2020 because back then I was struggling a lot. Oh, it was the pandemic, so I was struggling a lot, period. But like in particular with TikTok dependency and straight up phone addiction. And I only re-downloaded it in March or April of 2024. And the reason I decided to download it again was because of the podcast. I wanted to use TikTok to promote my episodes there because whether I like to admit it or not, and I don't like to admit it, but TikTok is an amazing promotional tool. So what I ended up doing is I used it to promote the podcast like literally 3 times, and everything else was doom scrolling and brain rotting, and I would just spend hours on end every day just scrolling. And I was feeling like a complete piece of trash, but I was just addicted. That is how those things operate. That's what they're designed to do. They're designed to be addictive. And if you want me to go into more detail, write down in the comments here or DM me on Instagram at DirtyMartiniPod. Because as a media studies graduate, I have the knowledge of how those things operate and how they manipulate the human psychic to basically invade it and occupy it always and forever. Which is what made things suck for even more, because I was like, you literally are doing a degree in this and you know how those things operate and you know they're built to eat away at your time and make you spend your time on there so that they can make money out of you. Why are you letting yourself do it? So knowing the entire behind the scenes and still letting myself do it made me feel extremely terrible and extremely weak, and I hated every single second of it. But the thing is, I also made a rough estimation, and I spent around 2 months straight of 2024 just scrolling on social media, both TikTok and Instagram combined. And that is an extremely shameful confession of me to make. I am not proud of this. It just terrified me because that is like 2 or 3 hours a day. And as much as I'm ashamed to admit it, I would sometimes spend even more time on my phone per day. And I knew I wanted this to stop because I just got so scared that I was quite literally scrolling my life away. And last year, I didn't do my regular social media detox around Christmas. And for me, the solution is going cold turkey. Always. So on the 30th of December, I finally gathered the courage to delete TikTok and face the problem that I was dealing with since March, that I recognized what's going on and that I was still avoiding because TikTok, it can be entertaining. That is the whole point. So I do still use Instagram, and my Instagram use has risen a bit because I'm experiencing the dopamine withdrawals, but I will also delete my Instagram. The only profile I will leave active is my Dirty Martini Pod profile because I only use it for the podcast because I can easily, I don't know how I achieved it. I don't know how it happened, but I'm happy that it happened. I can manage to compartmentalize. I always struggle to say that word. Compartmentalize it really well from my main account. And so basically by deleting TikTok, I have already taken the first step to reducing my screen time. And I can say that so far the results may not have been as big as I expected them because I am procrastinating studying for my exams by looking at Reels. But I'm getting there because Reels honestly are not as tailored to me as my TikToks were because I didn't spend that much time on Instagram. So my algorithm on TikTok knew me better, and the algorithm on TikTok, it is far more adaptable. I am starting to get the hiccups, so I will keep it brief. Basically, also another thing I have done is I have set a timer, which I have to be honest, I ignore every single day. I have set a 30-minute timer and I press ignore after 15 minutes and then ignore after 15 minutes. And then I just press ignore limit for today. And yeah, that is not my proudest moment either, but there's no point in lying to you. There's no point in lying to myself. I am struggling with this because I am addicted to my phone and I hate this very, very much. And I'm so thankful to my parents that they only got me a smartphone when I turned 16 and not when I was younger because I still got the chance to have a childhood. When I was little, I didn't necessarily understand why they were doing it because I was the only child in my class who still had a Nokia phone. And like, yes, that was a reason to be mocked sometimes, but like now, honestly, I wish I never created Instagram. I wish I never created TikTok. I wish I never joined social media. And I really, really wish I have the strength to leave it, or at least not let it dominate my life, which is a bold statement to be made by someone who quite literally shares their life here on social media and like has established some sort of a corner of the internet to just share their life. So this is another thing I'm struggling with. Like, I love creating the podcast. I love creating content for social media. I just don't like using social media. It is a dichotomy. It is a juxtaposition, like one of my friends would say. And yeah, while I'm struggling to navigate this relationship I have with social media by wanting to contribute to it, but not wanting it to define me, I will be struggling. And I will be honest with my struggles, I promise, because maybe some of you are struggling as well, and maybe this can be helpful because not a lot of people I've noticed are like honest in their social media addiction, and more people than not of those who use social media are addicted to it because that is simply how those things operate. That is their entire business model. That is just their attention economy. That is what they are made to do. And there's no shame in it, even though I personally feel ashamed because I literally did an entire degree about this and I'm still letting myself become the victim of it. So, anyways, basically, these techniques that I've implemented now are creating a path for me to walk on. The TikTok deletion eradicated the TikTok addiction at its root. And if you've dealt with anyone with addiction, and I don't mean to compare like smartphone addiction to any substance addiction, but basically what you experience when you go through withdrawals is like you substitute one addiction with another. You substitute one substance with another. So now my substitute is Instagram, and I'm trying to eradicate this as well. And by pressing the ignore limit button, it just reminds me of how I am myself overstepping my boundaries. And it just brings up negative feelings during my Instagram scrolling because I just keep reminding myself that I should not be doing it. But it is just those actionable steps that I have so far taken to reduce my social media use. And I just need to try and respect them. Which, if you've ever had to do it, you know it can be much harder than it sounds. So, yes, I am technically failing with this one so far, but I'm not giving up because this is something I desire so much. Also, maybe try to find someone to talk to about your goals. I know they can be very personal and that is a tricky situation, but having someone to hold you responsible is a nice motivator to stick to your determination, because if you don't, you would have to have an uncomfortable situation and conversation and perhaps even shame. And there's not a better motivator than shame. This one personally does not work for me. For me, it is rather counterproductive because I don't feel like I'm being held accountable, but that I'm being burnt at the stake. But maybe you can try it out, and if it works for you, that can be an amazing way to approach this because it brings in the social aspect and the outward support that we sometimes need. But those are just some of the ideas I could come up with to help you and myself stick to our goals, not just on New Year's, not just throughout 2025, but just like in general. Try them out, adjust them to your liking, to your situation. They're not a one size fits all. There's no such thing. You need to understand and implement whatever works for you. So if you have any other ideas or little tips, tricks, and hacks, feel free to share them. I would be more than happy to hear about your experiences and proposals. With that being said, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you're able to fulfill everything your heart desires. But until then, stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and don't support genocide. Bye!